MATOKA が参ります。ご注意ください。
Hey friends. So, I am still walking down that path of enlightenment. And by enlightenment, I mean answering the question, Bro, what are you doing with your life? And because I recently came to the realization that reaching out to people is one of the good things to do, I thought who better to reach out to than someone whose life I want to emulate. Now, there are a few things I know that I really like. I really like to travel. I like to live in new places and experience the culture. And I mean, there are a lot of other things I like as well, like food and sports, like badminton. But if I had to focus on a career that let me travel and experience new things and live in a bunch of places around the world, there is someone's life that I would like to emulate. And that is my friend, Jenny. Now, you're gonna hear this a lot through the video because a lot of the times it's just like, wow, Jenny's so cool. Her life seems freaking amazing. She's living over here, she's living over there, she's working too, being successful, all that kind of stuff. And I've always wondered to myself, like, is there a secret to getting that type of life? But honestly, I've been in my head for the past year or two, so of course I never asked that question out loud. And so with me starting to reach out to people, I thought, why don't I just reach out and ask? And so I did. This is the conversation I had with my friend, Jenny. Before we jump in, let's rewind to how I met Jenny. During my freshman year of college, I joined this club called CSA. Cal Poly was not a diverse school, so joining clubs was the best way to meet other ethnic groups. I purposely went to a school where I knew the least amount of people from high school because I felt like I needed that change and a fresh start. And so I used this club as a jumping off point to meet new people. Jenny was on the board of the club, so I would see her a lot. I'm not gonna lie, I don't think we were super close, but it's always nice seeing a friendly face at events or walking around campus, especially an upperclassman who knows you. But like many college relationships, we fell out of touch. Now, social media is a very interesting tool that lets you know what your peers are doing without having to directly communicate with them. So I would always see Jenny's posts, which include traveling the world and soaking in new and amazing experiences, and I was always thinking about how cool she was. Especially to be able to travel and live in other parts of the world while working for a company that lets you do that. And with my life path looking like an overcooked spaghetti noodle, I wanted to hear how Jenny got to where she is today. She gratefully accepted my invitation to talk, which makes me feel like I'm not such a bad person and people still want to talk to me after all these years. And this is how our conversation went.
Hey.
Hey, what's up?
Not much. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Yeah, I'm alright. Oh, I still have this background on.
Well, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about, I think we talked about this kind of a long time ago, maybe, about like, I was like asking how you found your job and all that kind of stuff, just because I feel like you live such a cool life. And you know that's based on social media and what I see and stuff like that, so you know that's just my opinion. I don't know all the truth into it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, living in a lot of different places around the world and just like, you know, being able to kind of work on your own schedule and stuff, that is the kind of thing that appeals more to me. I mean, I'm sure you don't have all the answers, of course, but I'm more just looking for other people's experiences at this point and seeing if, you know, what I personally can take away from them and maybe either apply to my life or just, you know, things that I might not know.
I actually watched your last video and it actually was really good, and I feel like
thank you.
I feel like you covered all the points of like when you're in a rut, like what you need to do to get out of it. I don't know if I have any more advice for you.
I mean, advice aside, I feel like just listening to other people's stories helps more than like, you know, any advice that someone could give me, just because, you know, not only does it like give me hope, like, oh, you know, it happened to someone else, so maybe it could happen to me, but also just like, you know, seeing what you went through and then maybe like applying whatever I can to my own situation. Like, I feel like just listening always helps. Yeah. So to start off, I kind of just wanted to talk about the job, how you found it,
Yeah.
what you do, and then also how you like balance the schedule, because I know it is a telecommuting job where there are a lot of different like hours, a lot of time differences, right?
Well, I guess I can start off with what I do and then I can talk about how I got there. So right now I am, I guess, like a product release manager for this software company called Anaplan. We are based out of San Francisco, but we have offices all over the world, including New York, where I am now, and London, where I was before. Right now, we're like at 1,600 people, but when I
Wow.
started, we were around 500. When I joined, it was a late stage startup, and I kind of just grew with the company. I've been with them for like 4.5 years now.
Okay.
So,
Were they international when you already started? Like, did they already have the other offices established?
yep.
Okay.
So that was definitely something I saw as like a potential because I've always liked traveling. I knew like I wanted to move to New York eventually,
Right.
and I saw they had a New York office. So it was kind of like in the back of my mind. And I always told everyone I worked with, like all of my managers, I've had like 10 of them, but
Hmm.
I've always told them that I wanted to travel and I wanted to move to New York eventually. Like, not at the time, I'll be like, not now, but just like, eventually. And they were like,
Right.
yeah, when that time comes, shouldn't be a problem. But yeah, finding this job was definitely a journey. I didn't study anything around computer science or like
Right.
the producty stuff like business. I did get my
Mhm.
MBA, but like before
Right.
that, I was studying food science. That was my bachelor's. I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do with that. I just went into it because I liked food and I was like, yeah, this should be
Right.
fun. And then after I graduated, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So I joined this, it was like a 1 year master's program for dairy science, like
Okay.
making cheese and stuff.
Okay.
That was also the year, like right after undergrad, where everyone moves away. I lost a lot of friends, and
Okay.
people also like move away and they're like figuring their stuff out.
Hmm.
And that year, I was actually like super depressed. I guess I was just like very lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't feel like I was good at anything. I actually had like an eating disorder as well. Yeah, it was just like probably my lowest point in my life that year since we all just graduated. It put us in a different place. It put us in a different place where friendship takes effort, It's
Oh,
not
for
like,
sure. Hmm.
yeah. So I guess it was just like the coming of age, you're trying to figure that out. And yeah, I just wasn't happy with myself. So I don't know what kind of like sparked me to do better, but I think I did a lot of self reflection, like blogging, or yeah, blogging
Hmm.
and stuff. And I was like thinking about what's important in life. The first thing I thought about was like family and friends. I guess I made a huge effort or a conscious effort to reach out to my family and friends and do it consistently. So that started off with like calls to my parents, and my parents we weren't very close at that time. And now we have a great relationship, but
Hmm.
I kind of like attribute it all to that period of time when I would call them like maybe at least once a week. And so I think just having that support system naturally brought me out of that dark place, and I started becoming healthier as well. In terms of what I wanted to do, I knew I didn't want to work in the food industry
What made you,
because
yeah, what made you end up not wanting to do the cheese?
okay, well, so I love food. I love enjoying it,
Right.
but working in the food industry is completely different
Then
from what I
eating,
imagined.
right?
Yeah. I don't know. I just never really found joy in it. Like
Okay. Hmm.
sometimes like I didn't hate it, but I just never found joy, and like it didn't make me excited. Also, I felt like the people I met through that network weren't my type of people. So I was like, if I'm going to turn this around, what am I gonna do? And yeah, like just through conversation with one of my friends, she mentioned that she was applying to the MBA program, and I was like, why not? I applied. I didn't think I would get in because I didn't have great grades, and yeah, they accepted me, and I was like really surprised, but that kind of really pushed me to try harder with everything. Like it kind of made me feel like I was on the right track. Yeah, and then I graduated from the dairy science thing. I worked in a cheese factory for a summer, but yeah,
How is that?
it was so boring. It was so boring that I taught myself how to code in between.
Oh wow, okay.
In like the downtimes, like because I was testing this, it was called an infrared spectrometer, and it was just like a thing that shoots lasers at cheese, and it tells you what's in the cheese. And it was a big deal because it would like save operational costs of testing cheese content across the company. Yeah, I was just like so bored because I literally would just walk into the factory and then stick my hand in there. Like I was wearing gloves and everything, and then grab some cheese, put it in a Whirlpack bag, and then I would walk all the way back, and then I would just run that test. And I would just do that like every hour for 8 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And I worked the night shift too.
Oh, that's even worse.
Yes, but it definitely built character. Yeah, it was even more of a reason why I was like, I need to really make my time in the MBA program worth it.
So you did your undergrad in food science, and then the master's in the cheese. Sorry, I don't know the technical term for it. And then the MBA after that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was all just one after the other.
Okay.
I felt like this was a good foot in the door to try different things. So when we did start, I was very active in everything. Like I was in all the study groups. I was part of our graduate students in business association.
Okay.
And I was like the treasurer. I was also active in entrepreneurship. Yeah, we had a entrepreneurship class, and I had this idea, a peer-to-peer market for clothing, kind of like thrift stores, but
through like
online.
an app or?
Yeah, it was an app. But yeah, when I pitched it to the class, people liked it, and so I had like a team in the class, and we did that for a project. We presented it, and afterwards I heard about the Center of Innovations at Cal Poly.
Okay.
And they were doing this accelerator program for the summer. So if you apply and you get in, you can get 10 grand, and then you also get a spot in the office space. So I was like, I actually want to try to do this. We were like, okay, what do we need to apply to this? We figured we only needed a designer to draft kind of our vision. So we reached out to our network, and Amanda Yam, she was actually interested, and she helped us with our initial application. We did not officially get in, but we still got in with this like other group where they were like, oh, wow, there were so many good submissions that we were only supposed to accept 10 teams, but we accepted 12 teams, and we were part of the additional 2. But that meant we didn't have the funding. So we just had the office space and no money. And then we were like, we'll take it. That's when we started looking for engineers. And the way we did it was very like guerrilla. Like we just made these flyers, and we just went to the engineering buildings and just went into the bathrooms and just posted
into the bathrooms?
In the bathrooms, yeah.
I mean, I guess that is a good strategy, because eventually they'll all have to use the bathroom. So everyone will see it at one point.
Yeah, and then when they're like, taking a shit, they're sitting there for a long time.
Yeah,
and they have nothing else to
they're like,
look at.
Nothing to read. I guess I have to read this poster.
But yeah, we were lucky, and we found 3 engineers who joined our team, and we spent the summer. We were like ready to start the summer doing that. The program didn't start yet, so we were kind of finishing up the school year. There are a lot of career fairs, and there happened to be a startup career fair for the first time at Cal Poly. I just checked it out randomly. I was not prepared. I was just in my gym clothes, but it's all startups, so they don't care.
Right.
I saw Anaplan. They had a booth. Definitely had the most swag because they were a late stage startup. So that's why I went to their table. But yeah, I just walked up and I asked them what it was. I guess I didn't explain what it was earlier. So it's planning software for enterprises, like large companies. I guess the interface is kind of like Excel. There's a lot, like a stronger calculation engine behind it. It's also in the cloud. So all of the buzzwords. Nice. And so they were kind of like pitching the solution to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I needed this when I worked in the cheese factory, because every hour I would have to enter in this data into like an Excel spreadsheet and then upload it into a file through like this whole clunky SAP system. And this whole process would take a freaking week. Yeah. And I was just like, yeah, this would completely fix that. Like we could just do that instantly. And we were talking and they were like, oh yeah, that's really interesting. We haven't really gotten into the food industry yet. And I was like, yeah, you should think about it. And I was like, are you hiring MBAs? And he was like, yep. and then I got the interview. I talked to the recruiter and he was trying to set up some phone calls, but I sneakily was just like, oh, I'm actually going to be in San Francisco on that day, so I can do these in person. And he was like, okay. And so he set up all the interviews in person. So I completely kind of like skipped the other phone screenings and just went in person. I feel like that was like retroactively, I feel like that was a really good move on my part because interviews in person are so much better.
You really can like show your personality more, and I don't know, it feels more intimate than a phone call ever does.
To be honest, I don't think I interview well. I think I get very nervous and sometimes, I don't know, I'll just like say something stupid. But that day I had another interview that morning. By the time I went to Anaplan, I was like super tired and I just like was so relaxed.
You're warmed up. You're ready for it.
But yeah, I felt like I was just very open and honest and authentic with them. He liked me and they offered me the job initially, but then I turned it down because I wanted to commit to the summer accelerator program. So this was all happening at the same time, right?
Right.
Yeah, I just thought about like this was like a once in a lifetime opportunity and they totally understood. So I did it. It was probably the best and the worst time of my working career. Yeah, I'm really glad I did that. But obviously it didn't work out. But yeah, I was just like, let's just cut our losses and just like close up shop. And so after we did that, I called the same recruiter and I was like, hey. And I had to go through the whole interview process again, but they still accepted me. I started off as a business analyst and I did this like rotation through a couple groups. And I was like very low level. They didn't really care what I did as long as I did something. So I came up with all these project ideas and most of them involved me traveling. They were like, yeah, go for it. So I guess that's how people knew me, as like the person who liked doing the traveling stuff. So whenever there was an opportunity to travel, they would think of me and ask me if I wanted to do that.
So making your own projects where you would travel kind of started off that basis to where you are now then, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't all just like having fun. I definitely had to deliver on what I said I would deliver, but people generally liked what I did for some reason. And then after my rotation, I was placed into the customer operational team. I was given this pretty big program and it had a lot of visibility. So a lot of people across the company knew that I guess I was good at being a program manager. I was kind of unhappy because I felt like even though I was doing such a big role, they weren't fairly rewarding me. And so I was looking at different options, but also talking to different people. And I was talking to someone who actually moved into engineering. And I was thinking like, oh, in terms of my career, especially if I'm in San Francisco, it makes sense to try to be a little bit more technical. So I asked her, I just like set up some time with her just to ask her how she did that. She was like, oh yeah, we're actually looking for someone to join our team. And suddenly it became like an interview with her boss, it all just like happened so fast because I just like had asked around, you know. They wanted me in that team, and moving from one team to another really bumped me up, especially since being in engineering is more like where the money is.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah, it was also a challenge since I don't have an engineering background, obviously. Like I just like tried pretty hard. And people saw that, like our VP of engineering saw that, and they appreciated it. They told me they're like recognized potential and wanted to keep me interested and around because I think they saw like if I get bored, I'll leave. They were actually the ones who asked me if I wanted to try living in London for a bit, and I was like, okay. So I did it. I guess before that, after I joined engineering, I had already told my manager, like, oh, eventually I'd want to move to New York. Is that fine? And she says, like, yeah, it's fine. We'll figure it out. And then a few months later, I just happened to meet someone who was like living in this apartment, and they were moving out. And I was like, can I move in? Yeah, it was all very serendipitous. And then I was just like, I said yes before even checking with work because I knew I wanted to do it either way. My next one-on-one with my boss, I was just like, oh, by the way, I'm moving to New York on this date. And she was like, oh, okay. She was like, oh, how will that work since most of the people you work with are in San Francisco? I was like, well, I think I can work remotely. I can make that work. And I want to still keep the face-to-face relationships. So I set up my own standard of visiting the San Francisco office every month. I would be there 25% of the time. So yeah, that's how I was able to travel back and forth so much because we had that agreement. The company paid for my flights. If I wanted to do like a little trip in between, I could, you know, sort of
make it work. Yeah,
make it work.
So the team that you work with is based in San Francisco. So even if you're living in New York or when you were living in London, would you still have to work during San Francisco hours then?
At the very beginning, when I moved to New York, yes, I worked San Francisco hours. Mm-hmm. But we do have a global engineering team. It's really only San Francisco and the UK, in London and York. I guess as my time on the team developed and people knew that I was in between time zones, it was actually a really good spot for me to collaborate with both sides because that was like such an issue. Me being a program manager, like my role is to help teams collaborate. Eventually it became more like my working schedule and then like 9 to 5. Yeah, initially it was like very hectic. Like sometimes I would be working till like 8 or like I think I was at the office until midnight once.
I do remember one of your Instagram stories. I think it was when you were in London. I think when you worked until like 6 a.m. or something. I don't remember.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Part of my job was to run releases, and I used to like do all of them. And they're always 1 to 5 Pacific time, which is 9 to 1 a.m. in London hours.
Okay.
But that particular release just went very long and I was running that, and so I had to be awake.
That's why I wanted to ask about the hours, because I was like, oh, does she do that every single day, like when she's in London? Because that would be crazy. I mean, I think whenever working like or telecommuting between different time zones, there are always going to be those moments where it's like not ideal, but you need to like step up to whatever is at hand, you know. Every
time I'm, you know, feeling a little angsty about stuff like that, I just think about I used to work in a cheese factory. So I'm like, yeah, this is not as bad.
Right. I also did want to talk a little bit, going back to the MBA program that you did. I just wanted to kind of get your opinion on like higher education. I feel like a lot of people I know lately are going back to school or going to those, the programming courses, especially if you live in the Bay Area. Like, I feel like that's, if you want to do that and like get ahead, that's not a bad option. But you know, then they always ask me like, oh, are you gonna go back to school and stuff like that? And my relationship with school is not great. Like on a personal level, I would not want to take that step. But I wanted to get your opinion on how useful you think that like MBA or just the higher ed, maybe not the cheese thing, but the MBA and like the higher education in general, if you think that made a big difference towards like the career path that you took.
I think it was a huge difference for me. I would recommend it to people who are just, I guess, wanting to do something different. But I feel like I was always a businessy type person. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do with it, but I was going to use it as a tool to try a bunch of different things and see if I can find something that I wanted to use it for.
Right.
And luckily I found something. Yeah, I think nowadays an undergrad degree isn't really worth much anymore. So higher education or real world experience is what people are looking for. So I think that's like, if you know you want to do the coding and stuff, boot camp option is a really good thing because it's kind of like real world experience-ish. I don't really know. I didn't do it. But
I was just using that as an example because I hope I don't go back into coding again. Like that's not the direction I'm trying to go, but it is hard in this area if you don't want to go into coding because it feels like a one-way street almost. I mean, I know you end up going into the tech path anyways, but with your experiences of just meeting people in other places that you've worked or lived, do you feel like you meet more people in different industries now than when you just lived in San Francisco or the Bay Area in general?
Oh, totally. Yeah. New York is so much more diverse and interesting.
I'm glad to hear that. Just because I've been like thinking like, you know, maybe like this just isn't my place, especially if you don't want to go into tech, because even when you meet people, the conversations kind of always go back to like, this is my startup job or like, this is like this tech thing. And while I still appreciate that, like, you know, I worked in tech too. So like, I get it. I understand. Free lunch. That was great. But I feel like you kind of get a lot more out of relationships when you meet people who don't do the exact same thing. Like it just kind of broadens your mind and opens your eyes to other things.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree with that. Even just in terms of friendships, it's important to have friends that aren't the same as you. They help you grow. You know?
There's one more thing that I wanted to get your opinion on. I've been kind of debating the idealism between like hard work and luck. And I was wondering how you think, listening to your story, I feel like you did put a lot of hard work into getting where you are. But I wanted to know how you think luck also played into that effect.
I definitely think I'm lucky. And whenever people say something about like, oh, they admire me or something, I'm just like, I'm just lucky, which is what I said to you. But I think this is something I've been trying to come to terms with more, I guess, during quarantine and like think about. And I wrote it down somewhere. I don't know. I just like...
Ooh, we get a direct quote. I am excited.
Luck is preparation meets opportunity.
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, I think I was always prepared to take the risk, and because these were the things I wanted, I already had, I guess, everything else in my toolkit to make that move, except for the external things like a job or whatever. So once those things manifested, like the job or like this apartment thing, I was like, Yes, let's go. And I also believe, I'm starting to believe in the law of attraction. The thoughts that you put out into the world are what you can get back. You're putting your thoughts and your feelings out there, and they will kind of guide your actions. Mm-hmm. And all of those little things open opportunities for you that you can take once they're there. You know, when I had the opportunity to have that phone interview with the recruiter, and he was ready to set up more phone interviews, but I was like prepared to just show up at the office. Right. It was like me wanting it and like taking action, because I just like, yeah, I want to like.
You're just like, let's get it. Yeah. Come on.
I don't know. I think in general, I'm a pretty positive person, and I think that positive energy attracts good things. So maybe that's why I have all this luck. But yeah, I think I think I am very lucky. Like whenever I'm looking for a parking spot with my friends and it's like a full parking lot and they're like, we're never going to find a parking space, I'm like, I'm lucky though. We always find like a really good parking space.
No, but yeah, I totally agree with that as well. Like, I think like you have to put something out there in order for the luck to happen. Because I kind of feel like in the past, I've just been like, well, if I'm lucky, it'll happen. I don't need to do anything. It will just come. But that's not necessarily the case, I don't think. I think you need to at least put yourself out there, or nothing's actually going to happen.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of what I've learned in quarantine as well, because I've always felt like I've been the person to do things completely on my own. And so I am reaching out to more people. And even if it doesn't give opportunities, I think it's really good to just hear stories and hear the journey that other people have been through in order to get to their path or the point in life that they are now. Just, you know, kind of as a reference point, because, you know, if I never asked or if I never listened to anyone, I wouldn't know how they got to that point. I would just be like, they're great people. Oh, one more question.
Okay.
Are you happy? I mean, happy is a strong word. Are you content?
I think I am. I actually, well, I enjoyed most of quarantine.
That's good.
Because I got to like just work on myself a lot, and I didn't have any social obligations, so the whole social anxiety part of my life was just removed. I also felt like lucky that I had, you know, the means to be here, and like I had friends here and family that supports me. So I think this whole quarantine thing really, again, it kind of like brought me back down to like what's important. I think I'm happy, but there's still things that I want that will maybe enrich my life more. But I'm still trying to figure that out.
Same. But yeah, I appreciate you taking your time out of your day for this.
Yeah, of course.
It has been very enlightening.
Yeah, I hope so.
Hey, it's Future Me. I want to thank Jenny for talking to me and being so open and honest about her experiences. I really do think sharing stories is the key to understanding more about life, especially during current times when it feels like everyone is only thinking about themselves. I think sharing stories is a great way to listen to other perspectives and experiences. I can't stress how important it is to listen to other people's stories, because there's always something new you can learn from them. I've always had issues reaching out to other people, but if I can get out of my comfort zone and do it, I know you guys can too. Comment below what kind of career you're aiming for and what steps you're taking in order to achieve it. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.